Hi, this is Pastor Chris coming back to you today to share a story about one of the grandchildren of Isaac, one of the children of Jacob, or as we know from yesterday, Israel, the one who wrestled with God and was spared, one who wrestled with God and lived to tell about it. And so Israel had 12 children. And so as you hear later on in the Old Testament and even in the New Testament, you hear about the 12 tribes of Israel. This is the origin story of the 12 tribes of Israel. The son of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob, who is now Israel, had 12 sons. And we're going to talk about the 11th son today. His name is Joseph. Joseph was a favorite of his father's, and he coddled him and gave him all kinds of nice presents and showed him many things, showed favor toward him that he did not show to his other brothers. And his older brothers were very jealous. And so the story that we're going to share today comes at the end of the Joseph story, where after Joseph has been given a beautiful coat by his father, after Joseph has two dreams that he interprets where his brothers will bow down to him because he has more power. Not a good way for a family reunion to continue. After Joseph is assaulted by his brothers, sold into slavery, taken to Egypt, accused of adultery by the wife of the captain of the palace guard, who wanted to seduce him, but Joseph refused, and so she falsely accuses him. He's thrown into prison. After that, while in prison, he meets the wine taster and the baker of the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and in prison, he hears about Pharaoh wanting someone to interpret his dreams for him. And so he requests to be able to do that, as he is known within the prison system as an interpreter of dreams because of the baker and the wine steward. And so the Pharaoh sends for him. Jacob interprets his dream. Pharaoh is so impressed that he puts Jacob in charge of the whole land of Egypt as his governor. He's the number 2 guy, right out of prison into the second seat of the nation, of the empire. And Joseph rises in power because of his judgment and his character and his integrity and his willingness to care for his leader. And so the trust level between Pharaoh and Joseph is phenomenal. And Jacob is given more and more authority until the whole world is struck by a famine. But under Joseph's direction, Egypt had been storing food for years. And so Egypt had more food than it could possibly use. And so it was selling food to neighboring countries. And it's here that Jacob's 11 other brothers come to Egypt to buy food. The story goes on and on. Eventually, Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, who he is, and how they are benefiting from his mastery over government. And they are afraid because they're the ones who sold him into slavery. Eventually, Joseph has them bring his father, Israel, to Egypt, and his younger brother, Benjamin. So the whole family is reunited in Egypt. After Israel dies is where this story picks up. The brothers are now afraid because they think that Joseph has just been waiting on his father's death to take revenge, which would be deserved, So here we go. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrongs we did to him?" So they made up a story and sent word to Joseph saying, "Your father has left these instructions before he died. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and the wrongs that they have committed in treating you so badly. Now please forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father. When the message came to him, Joseph wept. Then his brothers came, and they threw themselves down before him. We are your slaves, they said. But Joseph said to them, do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended me harm, but God intended it for good, good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid. I will provide for you and for your children. And Joseph reassured them and spoke kindly to them. This is kind of a foreshadowing of the New Testament. This story is important to me, though, for Joseph's reaction, not so much as it doesn't seem that he buys into their lie, so much as it seems that it is his character and his nature to read into the situation when he says, what you intended for harm, for evil, God has intended for good. And what he's saying is, because you sought to harm me and to kick me out of my family's life, this is the good that God has brought from that I am now in this place of power in Egypt that affects the whole world. That affects the whole world. I'm here with the power to feed everyone who asks. The cornerstone verse of my faith. Yesterday we did the wrestling part. Remember, with Jacob, Israel wrestling with the angel? That's my cornerstone story. But here's the cornerstone verse. This is how I can truly say that I will trust God in whatever circumstance I find myself in or that I've created for myself. And it's in the New Testament in the book of Romans, the 8th chapter. And it reads like this. For all those who believe, who trust in God and are called according to God's purpose, God will work all things for good. That's the 8th chapter, the 28th verse of Romans. Paul is saying for all those who trust God, that God will work all things, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the sinful and the faithful, all things there and in between, to bring about good. And I think this story about Joseph and this verse from Paul are like a hand in a glove. And for me, that is how I'm able to go through my limping through life, my wrestling with God, my poor choices, my poor decisions, my sins, those things that I've done wrong. And, you know, even as a pastor over 25 years, I have many regrets about things I've said and done. And I trust that God will bring good from all that. Not just for me, but for those I've harmed. And for the world in general. That God is the actor here. God is the primary actor. I just work in concert, in harmony, or in disharmony. But God is the conductor, the one who always brings the final cadence and conclusion to the piece of music that we call our life. God gives the downbeat, and we play our song. And then God ends the symphony, and we rest in the presence and the view of God. God will work our song for good. Look for the good. Even in the worst things that have happened to you, look for the good. Even in the things that you have done that you've repented for, look for good. If you haven't repented for some of those things, look for how God is working good despite your stubbornness. For I know I still have some things I'm resisting. And I still know that God is working good. Maybe not for me yet, but for others. Let this work for you. Let this story resonate in your life as it has in mine. I hope it will. That what others have intended for evil, things that we interpret, have been against us. Whether it's been true or not, we interpret some things as evil. Look for the good that God is doing. Many blessings to you. And may your blessings become blessings to the world. Open your life to God and let God work through you. Love you. I'll see you tomorrow. Amen.